Check out this violin sound really quick. What if I told you I did very little technical tinkering in order to make this happen? What's going on? My name is Avi. I'm here to talk about Ace Studio's AI Violins. They are honestly surprisingly good and surprisingly well-targeted to me as well. Full disclosure, Ace Studio reached out to me for a collaboration and asked me to check out Ace Studio AI Violins, and in return, they gave me a year of their artist package. So let's jump in and see what's going on here. So you'll see this big track says Ace Studio AI Violins. Now, everything you see here that's grayed out, and including this is everything that actually goes into Ace Studios. And here's how this works from a DAW perspective. It's pretty interesting. So they have this thing called an Ace Bridge plugin. This is called Ace Bridge 2. And this basically connects with the Ace Studio program here, which is where we get the actual sounds from. They make this an extremely seamless thing. You literally just load the plugin, click a button, and it automatically connects and everything, and your DAW syncs and everything, and it automatically syncs the tempo, and it's pretty solid, honestly. Like, it worked very, very well. And all I had to do was essentially hit that record function here, and it just pops up automatically, just like that. Now, a couple of things. You may think, oh no, AI, that's not fun. That sounds terrible. I don't want to deal with AI. That's bad, right? To their credit, to Ace Studio's credit, they are trying to do this in a way that seems ethical enough. They claim that all of the material that the AI is developed on, studies from, gathers data from in order to create their performances, that they're all fully licensed and that it is, all done above board. That's awesome if that is, in fact, the case. Now, the cool thing about this is that there's very little to do. And this is also kind of a double-edged sword. There's very little to do. You can input the notes, and then really it is all up to the AI. And if it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, there's not a whole lot you can actually do in order to make it that way. But there is but it does get it right probably 95% of the time. There's maybe one spot in here where it does some pizzicato, and I'm just like, I don't want pizzicato there. What are you doing, pal? Right? So let's hear just the AI for a second over here. And if we do this starting in the program, this is really cool. You can still do everything you want to do in the program over here, but it still is connected here. So when you press play here, it gets connected, but when you press play here, it's still independent from the DAW. Very unique. Now, you notice it really is quite a bit of detail, a lot of air. You could really get that kind of hoarseness from the bend of the horsehair on the string. This is a pretty solid emulation, right? For something that comes back just kind of plug and play almost. Plug your MIDI in, literally just play the MIDI you have, and it automatically gets recorded in just like that. It's pretty wild. Let me show you that function really quick, actually. So all you got to do, right? So this is the last one that I had in. All I'm going to do here is change the studio. Well, I should actually add a track here. Oh, let me delete that. Let me just add another one of these over there, just like that. And now that's going to be track 3. And now I can put that here, turn this to record, and then when I play this, it'll just automatically take whatever's in this track and import it into there. Check it out. I know, it sounds like a piano now, but don't worry about it. So if I hit pause, and the DAW, boom, there it is. That's all it is. That's everything that I had right there. But because the AI is a violin, it's not necessarily, it's bringing in the polyphonic, but it still kind of chooses one octave or the other still. They do have this really interesting and cool ensemble situation where if you click on the track here, you can see I have a few instances of these violins in, and that gives you a kind of, that sort of session ensemble sort of feeling. And the more you put on there, the more of that sort of bigness that you get. You even have spreads and offsets that you can create to really dial in that ensemble kind of sound. Once that's done, we go back here and we just bring this to AI Vocal, and now we should get the sound imported from Ace Studio here in our AI. There you go. Yeah, that's right. So here's something to keep in mind. The violin AI, this is coming straight from Ace Studio. They really depend on context in order to play at their best. Now, what's interesting about this is that is also the case for real musicians. It is difficult to play things in a vacuum, and if we hear it, we know the way it should sound. Okay, sure, we can reproduce it, but that's going off something that already exists. Just like humans need, this AI needs the context of the greater piece in order to be able to determine what the best performance is for it, which is where we sometimes get those errors I was talking about. That like 95% chance, right? I got some pizzicato where I didn't want some. But honestly, like that's pretty great. And as updates continue to come out, like you can see here, right there, like this is still in beta, right? It sounds this good for beta. That means improvements are coming and it's not even officially launched yet. So for what this is already, it's pretty useful. And I will say for me as well, as someone who, from a composition standpoint, I really don't like composing in the DAW. I went to music school. I have formal training. I would really like using the notation and utilizing. It's just such a different process. So getting in here and being able to deal with the DAW in such a way that gives me a far more realistic performance that like I would get in something like Note Performer, which you can't use in a DAW unless you like use their playback engine in your sound libraries, which doesn't always have the same sort of like same effect and same what's the word I'm looking for? The same kind of contiguity and intelligence of performance that you get with Note Performer's stock instruments that are in their sound library. Their AI playback engine sounds better with their own stuff. So to have a similar kind of system, similar kind of sound work from the DAW this easily is pretty awesome, honestly. I do dig it. That is to say, like there are some limitations that need to be addressed. For example, there's no way to talk about articulations so far. I can't do anything about it. So here I'm just going to delete this because I don't need this anymore. The reason being, and this is exactly why I brought this into these one tracks. Now, normally, it would just be one violin track as normal. And guess what? When you hear this is a great example. You hear this. Gotta let it render. That's fair. I get it. It's okay, right? It's okay. But when you hear it in context here with the rest of the context, right? The musical context here. Listen to the way it sounds without this. We'll just delete it for now. Oh, wait, no, this is also on solo. Whoopsie. It just gives it a little bit more believability, more contiguity with the rest of the performance. So I see what they're talking about there. And that does make sense. If it's going to be any kind of intelligence requires context for the best output. So that's awesome. Really, really cool. And honestly, what you can do with these extra ensembles, like you can get a solo effect while also creating an ensemble effect. They really make these go pretty far. Let's take a look at the way the spread works. So right now it's just at 3. And if we solo this, we'll see what I'm talking about. I'll bring this all the way up to 10. And you'll hear now that the violins, these 3 violins, which you can also mix in and mix out to your pleasure, to your taste, you'll hear how they are spread out now across the stereo spectrum, or the stereo image. Right? And then if we go back down, you can really hear the difference with the back and forth. Right? So when it's more together, it almost sounds a little bit more like almost one instrument. When it's spread out, it really just gives that wide sort of ensemble effect. You can even add one more and make that and quadruple that effect, right? Give this even more, 25% more or whatever, 30% more. Would that be from 3? I don't know. It's math stuff. I don't know that stuff. Don't worry about that. That's not why we're here. There's also some reverb that you can mess with, some EQ, some compression, de-essing, so that you can dial in some basic processing here, which is useful, honestly. The other thing that you can do is export this audio and bring that into your DAW and then do all your regular processing as you would there. So this honestly is pretty cool. I like how this isn't like replacing the composition. It's very much like an aid to composers and an aid to composition, right? The fact that this is a compositional aid rather than something that would write the music for me, right, which feels like a replacement for the composer, is something that's really attractive to me. I think that this is a very smart, a very, funny enough to say, an intelligent use of artificial intelligence. And I think that more use cases like this that make it easier to write music, that make it easier to create a final product or somewhat close-ish enough to some type of final product-ish sound, that makes the barrier towards writing music and towards getting that kind of nearly production-ready sound is really where AI has its strengths. Note Performer already, there are working composers that do the same thing. I think Ace Studio is barking up that same tree. They're really DAW friendly. They also work with MuseScore, and I think it's Sibelius and Dorico as well. You'd have to check me on that. Please tell me in the comments whether or not that's the case. But they really got something cool going on. I do dig it. Let's listen to this example one more time, because it really does. This is something that I could see myself using in my day-to-day composing. Like, I would replace some of these with this, because there's an airiness to this that you can't get with these other samples that I have. And for example, these other samples that I am replacing are the Albion 1 from Spitfire Audio. It's an old sample pack, sure, but it still sounds great, and a lot of people swear by it and say they actually sound better than some of their newer stuff. But the other thing that I like about it is I was able to consolidate this into one performance, whereas over here, like, I have to go by the legato, and I have to then high and mid, and it's very disparate, and that's one of the things that makes it so different than composing on the DAW as opposed to a notation software, and this kind of evens that out a little bit. So all that means, right, is everything that you do here gets translated very, very seamlessly here into the DAW. It's very, very cool. I think that this is a really solid option, and I think that they actually have this really cool rent-to-own situation where you don't have to pay them indefinitely, which is pretty consumer-friendly, honestly. Compared to other brands, it's pretty consumer-friendly. So I think this is a recommend, honestly. I say that pretty wholeheartedly. This is an interesting sound, and if they just give you updates for life, basically, and you own it, that's a solid value. That's a solid value. All right. Thanks so much for joining me today. I will see you in the next one. Let's take a look at this one more time. Here's how it sounds with everything together. Awesome. That's all I got for you guys today. Have a fantastic one, and let me know what you think about Ace Studio down in the comments below, as well as their AI Violin. It's pretty cool. They got multiple violins. It's solid, and there's apparently more instruments to come, so also very cool. All right. See you later. Have a good one.